Welcome to Business Talk and time to take a cruise. And let's face it, cruising used to mean a lot of things. It conjured images of retirees and buffets of questionable ambition and a shuffleboard caught somewhere off on the port side. But today, it really is big business. It's big incentives. And if the numbers in global travel are anything to go by, it's one of the fastest growing segments in experiential corporate spend, which is fascinating. In a world where companies are fighting for talent and culture and attention spans, the TikTok generation, the venue has become part of the strategy. And the question is, can you really move the boardroom offshore and get better return on investment? So it's really interesting. I'm joined by Cruises International CEO now, Marco Cristofoli, to unpack the business of cruising and the rise of events at sea, which is, I think, a really interesting trend. Marco, welcome. Cruises International, you've been doing this for over 3 decades, and in travel terms, that's several economic cycles. What has that journey looked like from a business perspective, and where do you sit today in the regional travel value chain? Are you a distributor? Are you a market maker? Or effectively the gateway to cruising in Africa?
Yes, so first, thanks for having me. Absolutely. So it is an exciting industry to be in. As you rightly said, we've been in this industry for over 30 years. And in fact, we were kind of the pioneers in the industry. So effectively, what has happened over the last 3 years is there was no one really selling cruising. And we are kind of the gateway between the consumer, essentially, and the cruise line. So we effectively are a general sales agent for 10 best-in-class cruise lines. So the most notable ones and the biggest ones that we sell, which really lend themselves from a MICE and event perspective, is Royal Caribbean and Celebrity Cruises. And I think what the journey is so what we've done well, I think, is over the decades, is we've helped more people learn about cruising by building trust and making cruises easier to book. So what we want people to see cruising as more than just a vacation. It's a fun and valuable experience. So it's very experiential. And I think, South African travelers and African travelers by and large have a desire to not just to travel for the sake of traveling, but to gain experience. And I think that's what cruises offers. It offers an experience in a fun-filled way. And I think today Cruises International is known as the top cruise company in the region, working with big brands, as I said, like Royal Caribbean and Celebrity Cruises. And I think we're a trusted partner to both vacation and business travelers alike.
And I think the interesting thing about cruising in the region is that it didn't grow as organically in the way that it did maybe in Europe or the Caribbean. It had to be built effectively. So, I mean, what did you do differently in the early years to create demand rather than simply service it? And what were the big inflection points that made cruising mainstream for Southern African travelers, as you see it?
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think what we did is we made a conscious effort to teach people about. So what we didn't do, we didn't dive in and sell cruising. So we taught people about cruising, and I think that's quite an important distinction. And what we've done is we've done well in supporting our loyal travel agents, teaching them about cruising, because cruising, unfortunately or fortunately, is quite a complex. It's quite complex to book. It's not as simple as it looks. So what we've done is we've walked down the journey of facilitating that whole, teaching people how to book, how to make it easier from a systems perspective, from a one-stop shop perspective. So we've really invested lots of time, effort, and money in making it easier for the booker to be able to book cruising, whether it's a travel agent or the consumer themselves. So what we've done is we've worked with companies, we've worked with travel agents, and we've made them feel comfortable throughout the journey. And I think that's the distinction that where we've really done well over the decades, is that we've understood that you can't just take cruising and just go and sell it like you would sell any other commodity. We've had to actually make an investment in training, and I think that's kind of been the evolution and how we've, I suppose, been successful and remain successful in doing that. So I think the thing with cruising is it's a never ending learning journey. Every day is you learn something new. The products are coming in thick and fast. So I think this year alone, there's 7 or 8 new cruise lines coming on board across all the brands. So you can see there's a lot of product that is coming to the market. And again, that comes with a lot of training. It comes with a lot of complexities. And I think that's what we do well at Cruise International is we actually take the time to train both our corporate travelers and our agent community, essentially.
Yeah, and we saw through COVID, when the whole tourism sector was just completely put on, deep freeze, and how quickly the cruise lining industry bounced back, which just demonstrates that people want experiential travel just broadly, and now you're feeding into the MICE market as well. But before we get to that, I see you're part of the Bidvest Group. I mean, that must bring a lot of balance sheet heft and kind of Joffrey's Roffy and all of that, and relationships and procurement muscle. How important has that been in negotiating with global cruise lines and in giving African travelers access to a much wider portfolio of brands and experiences?
Yeah, it's been huge. So I think it's really helped to have Big Brother, as it were, in our corner, because as I've mentioned, we've had to make since COVID, we've had to make huge investments in the systems. So over the decades, we were very much a manual process kind of company, because cruising really hasn't been it was never a mainstream commodity, essentially. So we've had to really invest heavily in technology, and of course that comes with a lot of money and effort. And I think being part of the Bidvest Group has helped us from that perspective. And it's also what it's done is it's given us nice credibility within the global space with the major cruise liners, and the fact that you have to have big guarantees, etc. So from a financial perspective, that certainly has helped. So I think it's been, so we were bought out in 2016 from a family-owned business. But I think what we've done well as well is we've so although we have the buying muscle and we're part of the bigger Bidvest Group, we've always remained small and independent. So we run our business very much in a entrepreneurial basis. So that allows us to be flexible and move quite quickly, because it's not a static industry. It's very fluid, moves very quickly. So you've got to be able to move fairly quickly. Unlike a ship that takes quite long to turn, we have to actually turn quite quickly. But I think that's the beauty of being part of Bidvest, is that we are seen as independent. They're there to assist, but we actually run fairly independently.
But that's always been the Bidvest way. Even with the new CEO and Pumi Madisa, it's very much this decentralized, almost federated model. They buy into businesses because they buy into the jockey. They understand that it's the entrepreneur that grew that business to the point. So, why come in and put all of these bureaucratic strictures over a business that, would benefit, yes, from having that balance sheet and all the rest of it, but still allowing the jockey to go and do what it does. So, very much speaking of that Bidvest culture, which is fantastic. Let's just talk about MICE, because as someone, I host and facilitate and MC a lot of conferences. I haven't done one on a cruise yet. So, Marco, maybe we can organize one where we take a conference onto the cruise and we talk about it, because globally, that's become a serious profit driver for you. What does a cruise unlock for a corporate client that a 5-star hotel and a conference center just simply can't replicate? From the ocean apart, obviously.
So we've seen a huge uptake on MICE business on a cruise, and I think the reason for that is very simple. It's so once you're on a cruise, teams focus on what they need to focus on. There's no distractions. Everything is included. So you've got rooms, you've got meeting spaces, there's food, there's fun. all in one place essentially. You don't lose people because you're all on the one ship. And I think the most important thing is that it's a great way for business, in my view. It's a great way for business to get results and also let the teams relax and connect in a nice, comfortable environment. But I think the big thing for me is really everything's in one place. So you arrive, you unpack once, you repack once when you leave. You see different destinations, but it's easy to keep everybody engaged. There's no hidden costs because, once you're on the ship, I mean, they've got everything. So, from AV to all the tech that you need for your conferencing, to breakaway rooms, various restaurants, wellness. I mean, you name it, everything's in one space. So from a MICE leader or group leader, just think how easy it is. I mean, they can facilitate everything in such an easy way without worrying about, buses and logistics in terms of where to, which restaurant you're going to, so it's all done in one space and everything is effortless. So I think for me, if I'd use one word, it's a simplicity essentially. The simplicity, but the value you get out of it is huge.
Yeah, well, it makes sense that teams are more engaged in a contained environment. And I think, from a hard-nosed business perspective, because let's face it, CFOs don't sign off on nice experiences. They want returns. The fact that you can see productivity, deal making, all the strat sessions, all of that being a real asset at sea and changing behavior. It's no wonder that you're seeing such growth in the MICE component of what you do. Are there particular sectors that are leaning into cruise-based events maybe faster than others, financial services or tech or pharma, or is it just becoming a cross-industry platform?
It's across the industry. So over the last 2 or 3 years, we've had many finance companies that have obviously made use of MICE as a go-to. The automotive industry, huge, as well as the pharmaceutical industry. So I suppose to answer your question, it's across the board. I think there's a niche for everybody, and I think there's a product for everybody. And I think it's just cost effective. And from an ROI perspective, I think that's what makes it quite exciting for CEOs to sign off, is that they can see the value. There's one cost that's easy to reconcile. And I think the fact that their staff from an engagement perspective are totally engaged. They come back, they're motivated, they're more productive. So how do you put a value on that? And then I think that's kind of the ROI. But pretty from a numbers perspective, it's all inclusive. It's there. There's no hidden costs. You know upfront what it's going to cost you. And it just makes it so much easier from a company perspective when you sign off these amounts. And again, and the cost is relative. If you think about, when you're doing a MICE event on land, for example, you've got to factor in all sorts of things. You've got to factor in buses. You've got to factor in transfers. You've got to factor in, accommodation. There's a whole host of things you've got to factor in, and the costs then vary. And you start off with an X amount of budget, and before you know it, you've probably doubled the budget. With a cruise, it's a lot simpler from that perspective. It's you know what the cost is. Everything's inclusive. The AV stuff is included. The restaurants included. The breakaway rooms included. Everything is included. And I think the simplicity of it is what makes it so exciting. Is because from a tour leader perspective, you get a master account. You sign off on everything every night. It's easy to maintain. Easy from a maintenance perspective. It's simple, and it just makes it so much easier to take a MICE group on a cruise. Besides the fact that it's exciting, you're at sea and you see so many different destinations, and there's so much to do. It's just And South Africans, the other thing is that I like is South Africans like to have a little dop afterwards. And I think on a cruise, it makes it so much easier because you can't lose anybody. I mean, the worst is you're going to roll to bed. But it's, so there's just so many advantages. I mean, I could keep you for hours because I get so excited about the offering. But it's really yeah, it makes, to me, it makes sense.
I've got a few corporates that I think I need to put you in touch with, Marco, because you can see the value proposition. I think almost sells and speaks for itself. You deal with a lot of senior decision makers, though, who may never have cruised before. What's the biggest misconception that gets shattered the moment they step on board?
I think most people are amazed by how big and modern the ships are. And I think once they get the, they see the scale. I mean, I think it blows their mind. And when they see the meeting rooms, they see the entertainment, the food, and they just realize that cruising is not boring. It's an exciting and fun-filled option, and full of different opportunities and options. There's so many things to do, and I think once they step on board, I mean, for me, I think that's really that's a feedback we get is, wow, we didn't think it's going to be so amazing. It's
So
I mean, when you walk, yep.
How do you do that? Because I mean, you're a floating mixed use development. So you're catering simultaneously for an executive in a strat session, maybe a family or a partner on a leisure break, or a family on holiday. How do you do that without diluting the experience for any of them?
I think it's simple because cruising is something for everybody. I mean, that's really the key. There's something for every age. There's something for every interest. Whether it's relaxing, whether it's adventure, whether it's dining, whether it's shows, whether it's wellness. There's something for everybody, and I think that's the beauty. And the other thing we find a lot is that once executives or a group have been on a MICE, inevitably they'll want to take their families and take and experience it with their families, and it happens so often. And it's almost like golf, once you've done it, if you've never done it and you've done it once, it's almost that bug bites, and then you become a serial cruiser. And just an interesting stat is that if I look at our business over the years, is most people that cruise either every year, or depending on the economy, how bad it is, every second year, and that's a fact. So that is the beauty of cruising. That once you've done it, it's people really do it again. And this just because there's so many things to do and so many places to see and so many experiences to experience.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, what you touched on there, that pleasure economy is a very real trend that we're seeing, where you're at a corporate event and then you want to take the whole family there. I mean, I've seen it at events in Diani Beach, Mombasa, Kenya, where South African team members are like, oh, we didn't realize Kenya had such beautiful beaches, and we're here at a employee benefits conference, and let's bring the family next time. So, I mean, that becomes a powerful flywheel for long-term customer growth. When we look at accessibility, though, I think maybe there is a myth that cruising isn't accessible for African travelers. Is there a barrier? Talk to me about the perception here around price or air access, or is it just simply a lack of familiarity with the product that gives one that perception?
Yes. So I think yes. I think first of all, I think cruising. I think the perception is that it's expensive, and again, it's a perception. I think the perception is that it's it's dangerous. It's not for me, and I think what we try and do is we try and break those barriers. And I think what we do, Raleigh, is we always say to people, don't knock it until you've tried it. At least try it once. And I think what we do, we walk them through the journey of what to expect. We show them videos, so we try and familiarize them as much as possible with the cruising experience, as I say, with videos, with 3D, the name escapes, the 3D goggles, whatever it is that, the VR headsets. So we try and show them the experience so that they feel like they immersed in this cruise. Because again, one of the big perceptions is, Africans particularly have a fear of water. So we go at great lengths to allay the fear that, you're not, ships are very safe. by and large. You're not going to just, you're not going to fall overboard and drown. And, so we're trying to lay all those fears because they are real fears. And, and we've got to walk them through the stage. We've got to train them. We've got to show them that it's safe. And inevitably, when they do cruise, my goodness, I mean, they are our best advocates then because they'll tell everybody about the cruise and how great it was. And I think, what they also like is they like the flexibility. I mean, it's flexible. It's, and it's an easy way to see the world, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, and I think your mind opens when you travel in a way that helps land new strategy, develop new products, build team culture, and it gives you all of that. And, if you can combine that, with a cruise that gives you all the advantages that you've already spoken about also having everyone in this confined and contained space, building that culture inside an organization. Marco, it sounds like a really fantastic growth area for the cruise industry. We're going to have to leave it there. Just fascinating how something that I think many South Africans still mentally file under holiday is in fact a very serious, high-value business platform. And importantly, I think a sector that plugs directly into the broader tourism and economy and the African growth story as well. So thank you very much for sharing a little bit more with us. Marco Cristofoli, CEO of Cruises International, which is part of the Bidvest Group. A great look at the commercial engine behind the cruise experience and hopefully persuading a few skeptical CFOs that the balance sheet can occasionally come with an ocean view as well. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.